Superpowers on the Super Power Up podcast, the show that lifts the voice of love from orgasms to superpowers and everything in between.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sex, Love, and Superpowers podcast show. I am your host, Tatiana Berindei, and today I have with me Karen Abrams, and we are going to be discussing motherhood and intimacy. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen before we get started. Karen Abrams is a UCLA-educated master Theta healer, relationship expert, entrepreneur, and gifted intuitive. She works with professional women to transform their subconscious beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors to create new habits, mindsets, and actions that bring about personal and financial fulfillment. Karen is dedicated to helping women break free from living in survival mode so they can bring about fulfilled, healthy, and balanced lives. She's known for integrating her energetic work with practical tools to bring about powerful results. Her work as a teacher, entrepreneur, and musician give her the unique ability to understand the issues professionals and artists encounter. As a wife, mother, and daughter, she's acutely aware of the pressures women face in the sandwich generation, navigating their romantic, parental, and child-rearing relationships. So she is well equipped for this conversation, and I want to give her a warm welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today.
Yes.
We're going to have fun.
Very excited to have you. So, before we dive into this very close to my heart topic right now, will you please tell our listeners what your superpowers are?
Well, I will if you promise not to tell.
Sorry, I can't make that promise.
Come on, man. I heard you're good secret keepers. So my superpower is to identify the root causes of your deepest issues and help you heal them so you can live a more fulfilled life now. So when we're talking about motherhood and intimacy, obviously it's something that's close to both of our hearts. You know, my work is going to heal the core issues that are preventing intimacy with your partner. So you can, once again, enjoy that healthy, emotional, and, sensual connection with each other.
So let's talk about this for a moment. From your understanding, what do you see as some of the most common root causes that prevent us, once we become mothers, from really re-engaging fully in intimacy with our partners or falling out of that pattern with our partners?
Well, that's one of those, the joke where they say, I just have a few things to say and the whole scroll rolls down to the ground.
Yeah, right.
I'll just give you the top few. Exhaustion is a very big deal. When you have a child, as you know, and when you're going there, essentially, there's a few things that are going on. And one is that there's exhaustion when you have a baby. Women's body image changes, and their fundamental identities with their partner change from being lovers to being teammates and roommates. And so that space that they created for each other, that got them to the point of getting pregnant in the first place, right? Was like, God, I love you so much, and I know so much about you, and that space that you had for that is now taken up with different conversations of, did the baby poop in her diaper? Who's going to take so-and-so to the school? And I've got to go to the grocery store. So everything goes from sort of romantic place to a utilitarian place for a very, very good reason. And we have to, our love has to be strong enough to take that, because all the research, that's been out in the last few decades says that when we have children, our relationship with our partner is the one that takes the hit. So we've just got to be able to know that. And for women, and I'm sure you felt this too, and I know I have, which is there's a sadness then, right? We gain something else, but we lose something.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so we miss that connection and that warmth and that sensual connection that we had with our partner that was just a part of our normal interactions with them. And for women, a lot of times, they feel guilty like, oh, I can't be there, if my partner is a man, I can't be there for my husband. And I know this is the way, men love to connect this way with the woman that they love. And other women do too. And so, you feel like you're not being able to do that and provide that. So that adds like another layer of guilt onto this. And then whatever your partner's doing to try to either compensate for that, meaning, I'm not going to mention it, she's going through enough already. And I don't want to feel like I'm a burden on her. And then, maybe you're feeling like, God, if I have to give one more thing to another person, I think I'm going to flip out,
Mm-hmm.
From just that, like we said, that exhaustion where you get to that line. I used to get, my special time where I lost my personality was 8 p.m. And when I first had my baby.
I love how you frame that. When I lost my personality.
Right, I just lost it. And I would just say, and I have a female partner. I'm married and we've been together for 18 years. And at that point I would say, you know what? I'm done. Okay. I'm done. Just know that who you're talking to is someone who's already done.
Yeah.
And she got it. And she was able to, support me through those times. But, you've got to be able to also just, be able to let go and let somebody take care of you,
Yeah. And I want to go back to something that you said about sort of the identity shift. And because I think that, at least I know for me in my experience of it, there wasn't just, and this is especially like becoming a mom for the first time. I think subsequent children, you're already in that identity of motherhood, so it's not as big of a deal. But that transition from no babies to all of a sudden being a parent is a really huge one. And I think, in our culture, a lot of women are having babies later in life. They have established careers and sort of identities in the world, and they're used to a certain level of freedom that comes with that. And I know for myself, when I became a mom, and I was 29 when my daughter was born, so I wasn't as old as some women are who are becoming first time mothers nowadays. But even still, there was this huge thing that I had to navigate and that I had to work through around like, holy shit, who am I now? And how do I relate to the world? And really kind of actually grieving the loss of this autonomous, free person that I used to be, who now all of a sudden has a dependent who is very dependent. And then you throw a partner who wants to have sex with you in the mix, and it's like even more dependency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot. It was a lot.
It is a lot. And, 1 in 4 American marriages are sexless. And it makes so much sense when you're going through what you're going through, with all of these new adjustments and all of this new, these new identities. And I think the funny thing that what you're talking about, the autonomy, was that you didn't even realize how free you were.
Right. Oh my gosh. I look at people with no children now, and I'm like, you don't even realize how much free time you have. Like when someone who doesn't have a kid tells me that they're too busy for anything, I'm like, you have no idea what busy means. Like you do not realize how much free time you have. You really don't.
Yeah, we're all caught up in wherever we're at, with our schedules, and we fill it up to the brim, whether we're single and no kids and no relationship, or in one. Yeah, it all gets filled up by something. The list always seems to go down to the floor.
Yeah. So I feel like we have a lot to cover. I really want to talk about, something you mentioned about body image, because I think that's a really big one for most moms. But we do need to take a quick break. So we're gonna dive into that when we get back from the break. Before we go to break, will you tell our listeners where they can go to find out more about you and your work?
Sure. Well, you can go to my website, which is thinktheta.com, which is ThinkTheta.com. And so that's a great place to be able to connect with me and find out what's going on. I am offering to your listeners a special for purchasing 2 30-minute sessions from me. Normally I charge $250, but if they mention your show, Sex, Love, and Superpowers, and they mention that to me, they can purchase it for $175, which is, a great investment if you're working on, saving your marriage. But I also have a free gift for everybody else who wants to experience just who I am, what I have to offer. And it's an evening meditation called Healthy Intimacy, which is an MP3 that is geared to create just a more loving and connected relationship with yourself and your partner. And I will just give you one little tidbit of info on how to get the most out of that. It's really brief. It's like a 6-minute thing. If you listen to it before you go to bed, we already know that whatever's in your brain, whatever you are exposed to right before you go to sleep, marinates in your subconscious for the entire night. So if you want that connectedness and that loving energy in your space for 8 hours, that's the best time to listen.
Beautiful. So we'll make sure that the link is up on the site and available to all of you. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to dive even deeper. So don't go anywhere.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts. And we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Okay, so we're back. So before the break, we were about to dive into body image. And I realized also for our listeners, there might be some people listening to this who have no idea what Theta healing is and how that can impact this. So maybe we should backtrack a little bit and talk about that too, just to sort of fill people in on a little bit of a deeper understanding of what you're doing. And let's use body image as an example. So, like we said, body image is a huge thing that I think the majority of women who become mothers deal with because our bodies change so dramatically. And the belly is such a sensitive area and we have so much stuff around it and it changes and it gets floppy and it gets stretched out and it gets marks on it. So how do you support women in working through the stuff that can come up around their bodies postpartum?
Well, first of all, Theta healing is a simple meditation where you connect to your inner wisdom and at the same time you're connecting to your subconscious mind so that you can identify and change those damaging beliefs that are at the bottom, like the I'm nothing, I'm worthless. This one would be I'm unlovable, right? I'm unattractive when we're talking about body image.
Right.
And you're able to go in there and then also access all the trapped emotions that you've held onto your whole life and beyond that. And so let's say you have, I'm unattractive because, honey, after having a baby and not sleeping and not taking a shower, we can look in the mirror and get proof. We're like, ooh, I look like hell, right? You've earned it. It's okay. But it can connect to that I'm unlovable, I'm unattractive, and all of those things start working so that you are then creating a reality that may not actually be what's going on. So in Theta, when you get to that place and you access your subconscious mind, we kind of unlock this incredible safe where the secret is that your mind, we can pull out the secret of, your mind now can actually talk to your body and get it to do some really remarkable things. And what it can get it to do is, and only with your, consent, is let go of these trapped emotions You've got trauma in there. You've got resentment in there. You've got self-hatred in there. You've got a lot of stuff. You've had a lifetime before you had a kid. And you can go in there and be able to release those negative emotions, those, harmful things, and replace it with love and compassion. And when you're able to do that, you're also able to gain a deeply loving perspective on what's really going on. Like, no, honey, yeah, you may look like shit right now, but you earned it, girl. Be happy about that. You are lovable. You did the most amazing thing you could possibly do with your body. Or if you adopted a baby, you've done the most amazing thing you can do. You brought a baby into your life. That is remarkable. And
and it's kind of like,
right?
It's like battle scars, like,
right.
there are some people who are really proud of their battle scars, and wouldn't it be amazing if we could look in the mirror and, say, look, this is what motherhood looks like. And instead of even saying like, it looks like shit, like this is just a different version of reality. This is another truth. And it's beautiful in lots of other ways that maybe I'm not seeing with my eyes right now, but it's proof that I'm working it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's the most beautiful work you could be doing.
I remember my midwifery teacher, back when I was studying midwifery, she used to say, when I go into a woman's house postpartum, I'm actually concerned if it's like spotlessly clean,
right?
Because it means that the baby is getting neglected.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go into a mom's house unless she has house cleaners and things,
right?
Right. But if I go into a mom's house postpartum and there's a sink full of dishes and there's stuff all over the floor, but she's there playing with her child, then I feel relief because I know that the child is being cared for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bless this mess, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember when I had my doula, who was a very close family friend of ours, she helped us like create those stations, the diaper stations in different parts of the house, so that wherever you were, you could get to what you needed. But that meant that there were diapers all over the house,
right.
and definitely dirty dishes and dirty clothing. So I do remember all of that, and we still do have dirty dishes and dirty clothing around. So I'm not sure we got too much better, but
I feel like laundry is just like purgatory. Like it's never ending. My husband the other day was like, "Oh, the laundry's done." I was like, "No, it's not. The laundry is never done."
No, it's never done. It'll never be done. Don't worry. Your work will never be done.
Yeah. But so you're going in there and you're rewriting these stories essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. We're rewriting these stories, and you're saying, especially the ones like you're saying, what we're talking about, like I'm unlovable, I'm unattractive, right? Because I'm unattractive is really the gateway to I'm unlovable. And so you can come in here and get the most loving perspective, which is that you are love, and you're able to go in there and shift those beliefs that you had from when you grew up. And this work, Theta Healing, actually works on 4 different levels, which is the core level, which is everything from this lifetime, the genetic level. So all of your ancestors, all their feelings, and we even know this through epigenetics now, you're being able to see there's markers for your ancestors' experiences. So trauma gets passed down from generation to generation.
That's right.
And so you're affected by that. And then the history level, which is our past life level and our collective consciousness. And then the soul level is the one that's the deepest part of all of those. And so when you're really able to go in and access and shift beliefs and release all those trapped emotions and gain these new understandings on 4 different levels, you're really getting in there about as deep as you can get. But I also like to say that, this is deep work, but it's not hard work. It's actually the lightest form of healing and that I know of, because the lightest form of, let me put it to you this way, lightest form of letting go that I know of. You don't have to go, wow, this reminds me of when I got hit by a bus, right? And then we've got to visit the corner where you're hit by the bus, and you have to lay on the ground and go, oh my God, it was right here, and this is so horrible, for you to let go of it. It's really going, okay, well, I get hit by a bus by my parents, since everything kind of relates back to them in a lot of ways. And you say, okay, they didn't make me feel loved. And so, but that's energy that's been trapped. So why don't I learn what I need to learn about going through that? And then from my inner wisdom, from this pure loving place. And then I can go, well, let's let go of that resentment and that bitterness and that pain, and then receive that love and compassion in its place. And all of a sudden, you can be grateful for that experience and go, you know what, it happened, but you can actually let go of it and move on. So you can say to yourself, as the woman, as the mom who thinks she's unlovable, finally you're like, oh, no, I am lovable. And this came out of a place of great love. And my partner does love me, and I'm just tired. And maybe my partner is too. So maybe, he or she isn't, in the best mood either right now. And you stop trying to look through that lens that you created that stacks everything up in that negative way for yourself, that just creates a chasm that just grows between the two of you when it's, silently, just only silently acknowledged. It allows you this place of going, wow, oh, I could actually talk about this with my partner. I could actually find out what they're thinking and what they're feeling and what's going on. And we can at least go from there. You just start making better decisions and healthier decisions about all that stuff. And, why can't you go to your partner and say, God, I feel so bad about myself right now. I feel like I look like shit. I'm angry, and I'm grumpy, and I can't even believe you love me anymore, And then your partner can say, oh, you're being silly, and that's okay. I thought the same thing that you thought about me, You have somewhere to go when you're able to heal the stuff at the deepest level, and somewhere beautiful to go. And that's the beauty of all of this, I'd like to say, is just that you can have more intimacy from wherever you're at right now. You can have more, and it's possible, and it's not so difficult. It's pretty easy.
So let's talk about something that happens a lot. I mean, when you push a baby out of your vagina, it takes a while to want to put anything into it again.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that's different for every woman, right? Depending on, if you tore during birth, if you, what kind of traumatic or empowering experience you had, how quickly how much rest you give yourself right afterwards. So how quickly you heal. But then there's this okay, there's going to be a first time again.
Yep.
Afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Well, if you're talking about a couple, a heterosexual couple, then, men, and I don't disclude women from this, but we'll just talk about men. When they're in love with you, they want to connect with you physically and emotionally. And and sex is a way that they want to connect. Also, that's a very emotional thing for them also. And so you've got this thing where they want to connect and they're feeling disconnected, and then you would like to connect, but you're too tired to connect. And then, like you said, there's physical pain here. So you have to come here and say, you got to create a really healthy boundary here for yourself and say, I'm not ready yet. And I realize it's been 6 weeks or it's been 8 weeks, but I'm still in pain because I had that tearing too. It's so easy for that to happen, especially on your first child. And that takes a while for that to fix. Yeah. And you know that when, for all the moms out there who's had a child, when, the first time you pee after you have had a baby.
Or poop. Oh! First poop is terrifying.
Oh my God. Yeah. so the first time, this area that's been used for that forever, it stings and it hurts. And so the thought of somebody, it's like, get that thing away from me, putting something in there. So but what you can initiate is an understanding for your partner and in a way that you can still be intimate together that may not involve intercourse right away.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to play.
Right. So really, those are the kinds of places that you need to really communicate with your partner about and say, hey, that's not on the menu right now. And I don't want to be in pain. And so, and usually your partners will oblige you, knowing that there are other ways that we can skin the cat, as it were.
Yeah, and I think, this becomes such a tricky place to navigate for a lot of women, because I think there is a natural healing period. I mean, I think it took me 3 months to want to have intercourse with my husband again before we even tried. And it was horribly painful. And I think it was like another month or so after the first time, because it was just too much. Cause I tore pretty badly with my first child. And then, but there was also this period, and I've seen this in other moms too, where it's like, maybe you are ready to actually have intercourse again, but there's almost like I don't want to say it's a power play, because I don't think it's always a conscious, or very rarely, if ever, a conscious thing. But there is sort of this belief that gets set up, especially because we're so physically exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And I talked about this a little bit when I had Vanessa Marin on my show recently, and there's it's like this idea of making love with my partner is going to take energy from me. And I think one of the biggest shifts that we can make as moms postpartum is to remember that being intimate with our partner actually is nourishing for us too. And if we can remember that, I think it can really, really help ease that transition period. And to know that, like, this is going to be a journey and a process, and it doesn't mean that, like, we're going right into orgasms, but that it's okay to explore intimacy and to just be open to saying yes to it, and trusting that it's not going to rob me of anything.
Right. And I totally know what you're talking about, because you feel like your tank gets emptied every day.
Oh my God. I mean, I remember being so touched out with my daughter. It was like, I have been being touched all day. Don't you even think about trying to touch me right now. Like, in any way. Like, I can't, my nervous system is tapped. I can't handle touch at this moment.
Right. Yeah. There's that feeling of just being tapped, and it's also, like you said, the exhaustion of, many people have that 3 hours on, 3 hours off, or every 2 hours. We don't know. And so you wake up tired. So you're always half empty. And because, tired people are much more pessimistic. They're much less hopeful. And so you tend to kind of, get into a very short-tempered place. And so you, like you said, you don't want, if you're breastfeeding, then there's that other thing, right? So someone's already, pulling out nutrients from my body, and I've got to do that, 5 or 6 times, or maybe even 7 times a day. And then you want to go there, and so, so in Theta, what I would do is really, first of all, help the woman really let go of, let themselves off the hook, that it's okay, and give themselves permission to be where they're at. Because when we don't acknowledge, accept, and allow that that's how we feel, even if we think, even if we have a judgment about it, then it can never go anywhere, because that judgment just shoves you right into a corner, and you can't go anywhere with it. So when you acknowledge, accept, and allow that, okay, I feel this way, I don't want him to come near me. And then, like you said, bring in, find out what are the beliefs about being sexually intimate again, and being able to get into that deepest place in your subconscious and go help shift that. So it's like, oh, this actually might make you feel better. And there's a possibility that it will if you allow yourself to enjoy this now. And so that would really be where we would start to go together in Theta, so that you can explore that and bring that back in. And there is always going to be a first time, and you get to communicate that with your partner of, like you said, it was too painful, I couldn't do it, so we did it, and then it was like, I gotta wait a while, and he survived.
He told, and I think that's actually something I feel like what is just so clear to me in this conversation is how I think it would be so helpful for all of us to just shift our expectations a little bit of what's going to happen in the postpartum period, and to just understand that, like, look, there's going to be the postpartum period. I have a friend who says postpartum is the rest of your life after you have a child. You are then postpartum. But it's also like the acute postpartum phase. And I mean, that can last up to 2 years, 3 years for some people. And I think that to just acknowledge, like, okay, there's going to be, but like really super acute, like, let's just assume 6 months to a year, I think is a really healthy assumption to make, that like our lives are going to be kind of in chaos and tumult for this time period. And it's temporary, and it's part of the journey, and it will end. I can say, I mean, I'm going into having my second child now, so it's I have a different perspective on it than I did. And my husband and I we're actually doing this 30-day sex challenge. We're having tons of sex, and we're kind of joking about it. It's like, let's get it all in now, because we know that there's going to be this time period. And so I think that going into it, just kind of knowing, like, and communicating with your partner, if you're listening to this and you're pregnant, like, just knowing there's going to be a time period after you give birth where there's not going to be sexual intercourse occurring, and that's okay, and that's totally normal, and your partner needs to know that also. And if you go into it with that expectation, because I feel like we can really we shoot ourselves in the foot with our expectations a lot, right? And so if we don't expect that of ourselves, if we don't expect it to be like it was right before the baby was born, after the baby is born, and we expect everything to get sort of turned on its head, and for that to be normal, I think it's a lot easier to get through it.
Absolutely. And not only that, but you can communicate through it and say, God, I miss you. I miss what we had. I didn't realize how free we were. I miss our 30-day sex challenge, and which, by the way, is probably the easiest challenge to get your husband to sign up, and the easiest class you'll ever take with your husband.
Well, my husband's been joking. He's like, you're like what every man dreams of right now, because you're just like, especially, I mean, in pregnancy, I think most women, the hormones are just so ramped up, like you're always ready to go, right? So,
you're halfway there when they walk in the door.
Right.
So there really is that when you can communicate through that too, and just that you're acknowledging for each other what's going on for each other when you go into this postpartum time. Like you said, you got to take one take one for the team. You're going to have to for a while. And I had some wonderful advice that one of my friends told me when she had her second child, so I'd like to share it with you. She goes, it's really great to have the second child as long as you realize you're not going to get anything done. Right. So I impart that, and I share that with you, because that's also, even though it's really funny, is true. We have expectations, and that's what mess with us. And when we have the expectation, like, I have to get back into sex with my husband because it's the only way he's really going to fully connect to me. And, what if all these other things happen and he finds himself attracted to somebody else during this time, and I'm just, this, crabby person who he lives with, who doesn't take a shower, and I have to do everything all the time. And when we get out of those, when we can shift those expectations at a really deep level, then you can just be like, no, he's good, we're good. But you can be there for each other throughout it.
Yeah. So, and you just mentioned something that I think is really important, and I'd like to touch on for a minute, is this I think it's a fear that a lot of women have, that if I don't put out, he's going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's such a big societal fear too. I lived in Santa Monica for 35 years, and I kind of watched it change, and Montana Avenue, which was like a really sleepy town, and would close at 8 p.m. when I was little, to this kind of place with, Pilates and medi spas and organic food and all this sort of stuff. And I have to tell you that there was and because the property value shot up, it was like showrunners kind of moved in, right? And all these people from the entertainment business. And what I felt was this palpable fear with the women that, that they had to, be working out within the 6th week of, after they had the baby, and they had to lose the weight because their husband was going to find somebody better, younger, and, they were going to get replaced at some point in time. Now, did anybody say that to me? No, but it was a really palpable feeling. And I think that's just sort of what society says. The man's always going to be driven by a sex drive, right? It's going to be driven by sex. If you give it to him, he'll love you. If you don't give it to him, he'll find somebody else to love. And so you've got to be able to change that too, and change that expectation, because that just spikes your fear, and fear never gets you where you need to go unless you're running out of a burning building,
Right. I'm so curious what, and if any of that dynamic is still present in a lesbian relationship in postpartum.
Well, I felt really fortunate because, first of all, I wasn't always gay. It didn't happen to me till I was around, somewhere between 29 and 31, like that transition started happening. So I had very successful relationships with men before that, and wonderful relationships. So it was kind of a new thing. I didn't really expect that was going to happen with my life. So what I noticed that was different was that at that 6 weeks mark, when I was in my mommy and me class, everybody else was like, oh God, I've got to have sex with my husband. So I got some lingerie, and we're going to start that with that level of enthusiasm, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I have to do this. I have to do this. Whereas my wife was like, hey, you're good. She understood what I had been through. And so there was no pressure whatsoever. So there was just a lot of nurturing during that time. So I felt very cared for and honored, and my boundaries were very much honored in that time. But I also believe that there's a difference, because I was with a woman, all right, and I still am with the same woman. But the other part is that relationships are relationships. So like whatever that dynamic is, it's like whatever your issues are, your partner's going to fit that.
Right.
Fit that bill. So if you're used to somebody being impatient and self-centered, your same-sex relationship will, have that same sort of dynamic. So I think the healthiness of it too is important to note.
Yeah. And I feel, as I was hearing you talking about your wife, I feel like, my husband was actually very nurturing and very supportive in the postpartum period with our daughter also. And, like I said, we did not have a lot of sex in that first year, really, postpartum. And I think he kind of took it on as like a spiritual challenge, and was it hard for him sometimes? Yes. And I think that we can, and it's okay to expect our men to be able to rise to that challenge and to step up to it, and to not be slaves to their animalistic needs. Right. I think that is actually also, talking about expectations, like that's a really healthy thing to invite into a relationship, and to propose, and to help our partners to rise to as a challenge,
Absolutely. I think when we cater to somebody's every need, we're just enabling them and enabling that perspective of I have to be, taken care of in every way, shape, or form, and it's not true. Look at all the ways that, cultures initiate their men, right? To become, they, there's some sort of thing that they have to overcome and come back and prove to themselves that they can do it and come back a new person because of all that they learned. And, there's so much that women go through in our bodies just to have this, first to get pregnant, and then to be pregnant, and then to have the baby, and then to recover from that.
Yeah.
And so there's so much that we're doing, that we're rising to the occasion. It's okay if he's got to struggle, that he's got to go through to do this, and not out of a place of, yeah, you need one too, because I'm going through so much. Just like, it's really all right. We're both going through something,
Yeah.
So that's cool. And I think it's important to do that, to know that.
And to call it out, to say that
Absolutely.
what we're doing, to acknowledge it as such, I think really, really helps, because there are those fears and concerns. And I also think it's important to say, like, look, if your partner is going to leave you for someone who's like, quote unquote, younger and prettier than you, like, there are some fundamental flaws in the foundation of your relationship to begin with.
Right. And there's, and fundamental flaws that he has, that's what, so he needs a what, not a who.
Right.
So, okay. So let him find a what.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you're worth more than that.
Absolutely.
You deserve someone who wants to be with you, even when you look like you've been through hell, because you have. It's not about these bodies are going to change. They're going to deteriorate over time. We're going to get wrinkles. Gravity happens. Things are going to sag. Things are going to shift. and we want to be with people who love us regardless of what is happening with our physical body.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you want to keep that connection alive.
Yes.
And because that's important, because that intimacy can be regained. And, when I was looking at things about, like, when you talk about divorce, you're like, the half of the divorces cite, lack of intimacy and lack of love to be the reason. So,
right.
But I know it's pretty amazing. So, but if you're conscious about that, and not like the divorce part, that you still have the intimacy, even if you can't have intercourse.
Right.
You bring that, have that sensual time with them. And like you said, if you don't want to be touched, that's okay too, for however long that is. But to bring it back in every other way that you can, that feels right for you and feels right for your partner. And that way you don't grow this chasm. You diminish it all the time, and you get closer and closer together, and you're like, it's a bummer we can't have sex right now, but hurts too much for me, and this is what's going on, and he can deal with it. It's a bummer for both of us, but we're good. We're still close. I love him more than anything.
But to communicate it,
right.
That's such a key. That's such a key, because intimacy doesn't have to mean physical intimacy. There are so many different ways that we can be intimate, and vulnerability is one of them. And I think especially as women, and especially in a heterosexual dynamic, part of the role that we often play in the bedroom is one of being vulnerable and receptive, right? And there's a lot of ways to be vulnerable and receptive that don't necessarily have to involve physical intimacy, and can lead to physical intimacy, can lead to something that we thought that we were totally closed off to,
right.
and lead us to feeling more open to it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of ways to regain that. And I think communication is a big way, because then you can also figure it out with each other, and just, and find the books or find the advice that you need if you don't have it within each other. So yeah, it's something to navigate, but when you do, you feel so much, like you've really been through something. Like, I've been with my wife for 18 years, and I am so proud of that. I'm so proud of that. And I'm like, wow, we've been through some stuff, man. And times are like, meh, like you're looking at each other like, what? What are you doing here? Get out of here, And that's our big joke, to say to each other, get out of here, like you're a little kid in a playground. And so, but by going through these sort of trials and tribulations and just understanding that this is, a common and a normal, I don't know if normal is the right word, but it's something we go through in our life, This is just one of them. Having a child is a big, huge thing, but there's lots of different transitions that we go through. And all of those can strengthen the bond that we have, and it grows, and it can become even more unconditional, and which we really need as we grow older,
Absolutely.
That becomes a big deal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Karen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with us today on the show. This has been a wonderful conversation. Before we sign off, is there anything that you really want to make sure that lands deeply for our listeners that we may not have touched on?
Well, I want to retouch on something, which is that there's more intimacy that's available to you now. And if you're all right with that, I'd love to give everybody 3 things that they can do. And I spelled out can, as in, yes, you can have more intimacy than you do now. The C is communication, and just being able to let go of, your partner, of knowing your partner better than they know themselves. I know we've all felt that, So when you were talking about the vulnerability, being able to say to them, you know what, this is what I'm telling myself right now about our sex life, and so that they can hear that and they can say, well, this is what I'm telling myself about our sex life right now. And so that you can finally find some common ground to talk about. And then the A would be adventure. It's like, start doing things that you used to do when you started dating, to bring back those, those feelings. And when you're ready, you can bring those adventures into the bedroom and, talk about your fantasies or different things that you want to do, or try different locations for being intimate, that kind of thing. And the end is like the not quite yet, which is really just allow, when you're ready to be intimate again, allow that tension to build again while you're fooling around, because, that anticipation is very arousing, and it builds for a bigger payoff. That's what we want. And especially when we've been in a relationship long enough to have children, or even like second children, a lot of times it's so easy to go straight into intercourse, right? Because that's like, we've already gone out to dinner and had a movie, and we've done that part of our life. Now we just start with this,
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say that stepping back a little bit and being able to really rediscover each other that way, and then and bringing in that vulnerability and that really understanding is going to help you regain that intimacy. Even before you do it physically, you'll get it energetically, you'll get it emotionally, and be able to connect again.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you so much. We love you tremendously. If you want to know more of what we're up to over at Superpower Experts, come and play with us. Go check us out at superpowerexperts.com. And until next time, go out and love yourself so that you can love the world more deeply. Many, many blessings.
And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been wonderful to speak with you. It's been incredible.
Absolutely. My honor and my pleasure. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.